New figures from the UK Health Security Agency have revealed a worrying rise in deaths linked to so-called superbugs, which are bacteria that no longer respond to frontline antibiotics. Health experts say this trend highlights the growing threat of antimicrobial resistance. They say that it is one of the world's most serious public health challenges. When antibiotics are overused or misused, bacteria can evolve to survive treatment. Over time, these superbugs become harder and sometimes impossible to treat, leading to longer illnesses and more deaths. The report also found a large increase in private prescriptions for antibiotics in 2024. 22% of all antibiotic prescriptions were dispensed privately, which is more than double the figure from 5 years earlier. This surge is partly linked to the government's Pharmacy First scheme, which allows pharmacists to prescribe antibiotics for 7 common conditions like earache, sore throat, infected insect bites without patients needing to see a general physician. According to the latest data, 2,379 people in England died from antibiotic-resistant infections in 2024, and that is a 17% increase on the previous year. At the same time, the number of antibiotic-resistant infections rose sharply to more than 20,000 cases, averaging nearly 400 new cases every week. While the program was designed to ease pressure on doctors, experts are warning that easier access to antibiotics could accelerate resistance if not carefully managed. And in some cases, pharmacies prescribed antibiotics in 45% to 85% of consultations, depending on the illness.
The measles outbreak, making headlines in parts of the U.S., is also spreading north of the border. And now Canada has lost its measles elimination status. It's a rare and serious setback, a move public health experts see as a warning sign to other countries. The outbreak began last fall in New Brunswick and has since spread nationwide with more than 5,000 cases reported. Among the most tragic, 2 premature infants did not survive after their mothers were infected.
We have highly effective tools to prevent measles. Measles is not only a deadly disease, but it's a very, very costly disease. And so it's in every country's best interest to eliminate measles and to, have this indication of a clear loss of progress, a clear, decision to go back by decades worth of progress is just deeply disheartening.
Canada's Public Health Agency is now rolling out a plan to boost vaccination rates and improve national surveillance to track new cases. The country first wiped out measles back in 1998.
ბორტის 20 ეკიპაჟის წევრის ცხედარი ნანახია გუშინ 19 ცხედარი გადასვენებული იქნა პროექტურაში და ახლობით ნახევარი საათის წინ ნანახი იქნა მე-20 ცხედარი, სადაც ადგილზე ექსპერტ კრიმინალისტები და საგამოძიებო ჯგუფი მუშაობს. მინდა გითხრათ, რომ გამოძიებისთვის მნიშვნელოვანი ყველა ტექნიკური საშუალება და თვითმფრინავის ფრაგმენტები ნანახია და მიმდინარეობს ექსპერტიზა. საგამოძიებო და სამაშველო ღონისძიებებში ჩართული იყო 1000-ზე მეტი ადამიანი ქართული მხრიდან, ასევე თურქული მხარის წარმომადგენლები.
Right now we got information that the levels of the oxygen in the chemical have went down far enough back to normal levels that we are going to open up the area now. So the shelter in place has been lifted. People can go back to their residence. They do not have to evacuate anymore. We are asking the public, though, to keep, watching each other, watching your loved ones. If they're starting to have any breathing problems, to please call 911 or go to the emergency room. There were some serious injuries, and those were meta-flighted to Oklahoma City, and those were the life-threatening. Now, I would say those are in critical condition. There's a step down. I don't know the terminology for it. But our hospital couldn't handle those patients, so 11 of them patients were transported by ambulance. So from my understanding, the driver parked it actually behind the Holiday Inn to get a room there for the evening. We don't have any information that the truck was in an accident. Right now, best what we can determine that it was either a mechanical failure on a valve or it was a faulty seal. The cleanup's going to take a while. It could take probably several days. We pretty much got a lot of this stuff diluted right now, and so we're working with the EPA and getting the regulations on actually how to dispose of everything.
मेन गेट पे बिल्कुल ब्लास्ट हुआ है और 2-4 बंदे जख्मी हैं एम्बुलेंस में लेके जा रहे हैं ज्यादा आगे नहीं जाने दे रहे तो बेस
And US President Donald Trump has now formally asked Israel's president to pardon Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, calling the corruption trial against him political lawfare. In fact, the official letter released by the Israeli president's office marks Trump's first formal intervention in Israel's judiciary, a remarkable level of intrusion by a US president in another country's legal affairs. Trump's letter to the president states that Netanyahu's focus should not be diverted by the ongoing legal troubles, especially as Israel tries to stabilize after the Gaza war. Trump wrote, and I'm quoting here, "It is time to let Bibi unite Israel by pardoning him," quote unquote. He claimed the corruption cases against Netanyahu were unjustified and politically motivated, even as he said he respects Israel's judicial independence. And in response, Netanyahu thanked Trump in a post on X, saying the US president gets right to the point and calls it like it is, quote unquote. The Israeli Prime Minister said he looks forward to continuing their partnership to bolster security and expand regional peace. How exactly did the Israeli president respond? Israel President's office quickly clarified that any pardon must follow legal procedure. According to Israeli law, only a defendant or their family member can appeal for a pardon, and the Justice Ministry must first recommend it. The Israeli president's office said that while he holds President Trump in high regard, the process will be followed strictly. Remember, the Israeli Prime Minister, Netanyahu, is currently facing 3 separate cases of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. He is accused of accepting expensive gifts and granting regulatory favors to businessmen. The great grinding machine of US government has finally ceased, leaving a void felt across the country. But 2,000 miles west, the crisis has taken a devastatingly real form for the tribes of Montana, survival now depending on an animal they fought generations to restore. Take a look.
This was a no-brainer. This was an easy extension. But they didn't want to do it the easy way. They had to do it the hard way. And they look very bad, the Democrats do.
Donald Trump, flanked by aides and cameras, signed the deal that officially ended the longest government shutdown in US history. But even as the ink dried in Washington, the damage rippled thousands of miles away. For weeks, food aid was halted. Federal nutrition programs, lifelines for thousands, had simply stopped. As lawmakers in Washington, D.C. plodded towards resolution of the record-long government shutdown that interrupted food aid for tens of millions of people, tribal leaders in rural, impoverished reservations across the Great Plains were calling their cherished bisons to help fill the gap.
Okay, this morning we're going to go ahead and harvest 3 buffalo for the 4 big tribes. During the government shutdown, the tribes are worried about how to feed the people, so they decided to bring down 30 animals to help feed the less fortunate. So that's what we'll be doing this morning.
The bison stands tall in legend and memory. Once tens of millions thundered across these grasslands. Tribes risked everything to return the herds to the wild, investing millions of US dollars, forging alliances, denying droughts and politics. Now, shut out from federal help, they must slaughter a handful to keep their neighbors alive.
Slaves for half the town, so yeah, we borrow food from my mom almost every day.
Yeah.
And she already has a house full, so it's tough on her too, but she does what she can. Because there ain't no work around here.
As Washington's gridlock finally ends...
Finally! After 43 days, the longest shutdown in U.S. government history is coming to an end. So what did Congress get done during that time?
We've spent 43 days in a total stalemate for nothing.
The money only lasts until January 30th, so Congress is going to have to pass another round of funding by then, or the government will shut down again. But don't worry, because lawmakers say they're ready to work hard for the American people.
I think that's a load of bull.
The government shut down because Republicans and Democrats couldn't compromise on an extension to Affordable Care Act tax credits that are set to expire at the end of the year. Without an extension, health insurance premiums are set to increase significantly in 2026, in some cases double and triple.
This bill today is about ending the misery Democrats created on families. That is just about funding the government, not about solving other problems that we should be working to solve.
The last time you voted on the CR, you said you held your nose and voted for it. Is it safe to say that's what you're going to be doing tonight?
Yeah, I think so. It's I hate to say the greater good, but people really are suffering. This cold snap hit. I got poor people in my district. They could lose their electricity.
What should be Democrats' #1 priority between now and January 30th for a potential full-year appropriations bill?
We have to push to address this healthcare crisis, and the biggest way to do that is to make sure that we have an extension of the ACA tax credits, the Obamacare tax credits.
Democrats say they'll introduce a discharge petition to extend the tax credits for 3 years. If the petition gets 218 signatures, it would force a vote on the measure. But here's the thing, they need Republicans to sign on in order to hit that 218. There are some Republicans who say they want to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, but they don't want to do it for the full 3 years, and they want to change some of the eligibility requirements. Is the discharge petition negotiable, given that some Republicans would be willing to vote for ACA extension, just maybe not in the exact way that it's being proposed now?
Republicans have zero credibility on this issue. These are folks, these Republicans, who have tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act more than 70 different times in the last 15 years. There's no evidence that they're serious about extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits. As a matter of fact, they were given a very reasonable proposal by Leader Schumer, a 1-year extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits and a bipartisan commission to address the broken healthcare system moving forward, and they rejected it.
This resolution funds SNAP food assistance, the VA, the Department of Agriculture, and the legislative branch for all of fiscal year 2026. But for the rest of the government, including the military and Health and Human Services, that is going to need more funding as of January 30th. And if Congress doesn't pass another bill, there will be another government shutdown. Are you seeing us being back here in January in the same boat?
Absolutely. January 30th is the end of this CR. Do I think that the Republicans have the political juice to get to the rest of their appropriations bills across the finish line and a healthcare deal? No. They couldn't even be bothered to sit for 7 hours in a Rules Committee hearing last night and actually have a real debate about healthcare. So if we think that they're actually going to, in good faith, fix the American healthcare system in the next 2 months, I think that's a load of bull.
Just like UAVs and UGVs come in all different shapes and sizes, so do UUVs, unmanned underwater vehicles. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this Toloka 1000 behind me with a gentleman from the company. We're not going to show his face for security reasons, but just want to say thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. It's a great opportunity. Thank you.
So the Toloka 1000, it looks like a submarine, basically just one giant unmanned torpedo?
Well, it's actually more like a sort of unmanned submarine, so there is no crew. but it can do all the stuff that submarine does. It has even diesel engine on it, so it's like old-style diesel-electric submarine, but high autonomous. It can connect to the internet while it's on the surface and send all the data it has acquired during the mission, and can perform long-term missions up to 3 months or even half a year, depending on the fuel capacity and the battery capacity.
Okay, so that's good clarification there. It's not necessarily a strike vehicle.
It can be a strike vehicle, but it also can be a reconnaissance vehicle. It can perform demining operations, mining operations, serve as sleeping mine. You know, when it detects acoustically someone, it can go right to the target. It has optical, thermal, and acoustic targeting systems. We have a sort of Shazam for ships, where we can measure by analyzing the acoustic signature, define what type of ship it is, and even in some cases define what model of ship it is.
Shazam for ships. That's a good term. That's a good term. As far as where it's made and stuff, built here in Ukraine?
Yeah, it's built in Ukraine, but we use companies from all over the world, components.
You bet. In this show, I mean, obviously we're trying to attract some international investment, maybe some international customers. Have you had any folks from outside of Ukraine stop by and kind of question you guys about what you got?
Yeah, it's quite prominent here. Like, everybody sees a big sub and wants to know something about it. And we talked to some companies that are also in naval field. We also talked to military officers of European countries and also in US. So there are plenty of interest for low-cost underwater sea effectors. And what we do in Ukraine is basically low-cost, low-tech, but highly
effective.
Highly effective, and so we are good in implementing software, but the hardware is not so sophisticated.
Makes sense.
It's augmented low-tech, if you can say so.
Now, this is the Toloka 1000. How long is it?
It's exactly to fit in a standard 20-foot container.
But you also make different varieties of unmanned underwater vehicles.
Yeah, we have three base models. One is something like 1.5 to 2.5 meters, fully electric, with a range up to 100 kilometers and the payload up to 15 kilos. The other one is the middle one with the payload up to 500 kilos and the range up to 1,200 kilometers. And this one has a range up to 2,000 kilometers and a payload up to 5 tons.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The front line is shifting fast in eastern Ukraine. Russian forces are pressing forward, unraveling Ukrainian defenses. Ukraine is rushing to evacuate regions like Zaporizhia, where Russians are advancing at a rapid pace. Amid the chaos, the G7 called urgently for a ceasefire to halt the bloodshed.
The battle for Ukraine enters a brutal new phase. Ukraine's front lines are collapsing faster than they can be rebuilt. Russian armored columns are slicing through the south, towns falling one after another. With attention fixed on the Donbas, where Russian forces are driving hard towards Pokrovsk, a parallel crisis has erupted hundreds of kilometers south in Zaporizhia. The visuals tell the story of desperation. Convoys of ordinary civilian vehicles packed with hastily grabbed possessions are streaming west. Vehicles loaded with elderly citizens.
Kenya's Foreign Affairs Minister says former soldiers are among the over 200 Kenyans believed to be fighting for Russia in its war in Ukraine. Musalia Mudavadi has urged people to exercise caution, saying recruitment agencies are still actively working to lure more Kenyans into the conflict on false grounds. The ministry says Kenya's embassy in Moscow has recorded injuries among some of the recruits who were allegedly promised up to $18,000 to cover costs for visas, travel and accommodation. Ukraine last week said that more than 1,400 citizens from 36 African countries are fighting alongside Russian forces in Ukraine. Some, it says, have been recruited through fake job offers, which it described as equivalent to a death sentence. Kenya's President William Ruto spoke by phone to his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky last week, requesting the release of Kenyans detained in the conflict zone. And earlier this month, South Africa said it was trying to secure the repatriation of 17 of its citizens from Ukraine. It said they'd been persuaded to become mercenaries with promises of high salaries and were left stranded on the battlefield in Ukraine's Donbas region.
Russian forces are pushing hard to capture Ukraine's Pokrovsk region, with more than 150,000 soldiers set to storm the fortress city. Brave Ukrainian forces continue to defend the strategic city from falling into the hands of the Russians, even though it seems inevitable. The battle for the city has been raging for more than a year, and instead of full frontal assaults, the Russian military has been using a pincer movement to gradually encircle it, threatening to cut Ukrainian supply lines. Vladimir Putin is pushing hard to gain control of the industrial-rich Donbas region, made up of Donetsk and Luhansk, and controlling Pokrovsk would make it a lot easier for Putin to seize the rest of the area. Capturing the city, which is called the Gateway to Donetsk, would allow Moscow to push north towards the largest remaining Ukrainian-controlled cities in the region. And it would be Moscow's most important single territorial gain inside Ukraine, since it took the ruined city of Avdiivka in early 2024. If captured by the Russians, the city would be the largest in Ukraine to fall since Bakhmut in 2023. Ukraine says Russia's offensive has seen its forces sustain huge losses. Kyiv has acknowledged that the situation has become difficult in recent days, but Ukraine's commanders have refused to order a retreat, and troops are still fighting to defend the city.
Germany has announced military tests for emergency conscription affecting all 18-year-olds as the country braces for World War III. Berlin plans to ramp up its number of reserves by training thousands of young men every year as the looming threat of all-out war with Russia hangs over Europe. The German armed forces, called the Bundeswehr, need to recruit another 80,000 professional troops to hit NATO's target strength of 260,000. The country has stopped short of reintroducing mandatory conscription, but hopes boosting numbers will give potential recruits more insight into military life. Germany's reserve can currently draw from around 34,000 active members. But it now faces a dramatic overhaul, as military planners estimate the number will ultimately have to rise to 200,000 amid soaring tensions with Russia. The key NATO player hopes that calling up all young men after turning 18 for a Bundeswehr inspection will help ease recruitment problems and familiarise teens with the army. It comes as relations between Vladimir Putin and the West continue to sour, with the Russian tyrant ramping up his invasion of Ukraine and disrupting Europe with a combination of hybrid warfare tactics. Germany has previously revealed plans for war with Russia, with provisions ranging all the way from national service to bin collection. And now, as NATO states prepare for conflict in Europe with extensive war drills, speculation continues to mount that full-scale conscription could become a reality. In the UK, former defence chiefs have warned Britain is in no position to fight a war and that the government must consider conscription. Ex-NATO officers have told The Sun that the UK must wake up to the looming Russian threat and recruit thousands more soldiers and reserves now before it's too late.
unhinged people here already. Like, look at this. Look. This is the liberal view.
Right. Go behind them.
What the? Literally, this is the stuff conservatives have to deal with because you have unhinged liberals. This is the we're dealing with. Genuinely insane. What is wrong with people? This is genuinely insane. Just got to the Charlie Kirk event and there's literally so many unhinged people here already. Like, look at this. Look. This is the liberal view.
Right. Go behind them.
What the? Literally, this is the stuff conservatives have to deal with because you have unhinged liberals. This is the we're dealing with. Genuinely insane. What is wrong with people? This is genuinely insane.
the Turning Point USA event gathered here in line. They have just been let in, but as you can see, the protesters are upset, yelling at police who are standing there ready with riot gear. Tensions escalated. Fights, fireworks, smoke bombs erupted, creating chaos and confusion. At least one person was hurt, multiple arrested. Attendees and supporters of Turning Point's founder Charlie Kirk not deterred.
When you see someone that courageous with their faith, you're like, why am I not that courageous with my faith? I want to be that courageous with my faith. I should be not afraid to wear a shirt that says Jesus on it, even though everyone looked at me today and gave me dirty looks. It's like, that's okay.
I want to encourage free ideas expression. I don't want one side to dominate the other. And I think there's valid points on both sides.
Speakers, including actor Rob Schneider, questioning free speech here on campus. And addressing the protesters outside.
You're coming from a place of emotion. And that's tough.
Even without Kirk, the night and Turning Point USA tour concluded with his signature Prove Me Wrong format. Attendees given time to line up and ask questions or share their points of view. And Dan, there were some ticketing.
Charlie. We are Charlie.
So what brings you guys, why are you guys out here tonight?
We are Charlie supporters. And we love God and Jesus, and we want people to have free speech. We came here in the 60s and it was free speech. Now berserkly. It's not free speech now. Look, you can hear it. But we want people to be able to express their own opinions. Express their opinions non-violently, and we loved how intelligent Charlie was and how he got his point across and how he tried to answer other people's questions. And we just think that everybody should listen, whatever platform, whatever side you're on, you should listen to one another.